It's time for DVD and Blu-ray update. Ahoy everybody, and welcome to this DVD and Blu-ray update. Middle of July, got a decent pile. Let's do an update. Before I start, I want to apologise that it's been a while since my last video, about a week and a half or so. Basically, my old phone, I had very little storage left on it, and there was nothing I could do to sort of free it up without deleting stuff that I used regularly. So I've had to buy a new phone, as you can possibly tell by the improved picture quality. And, you know, I've got one with a much bigger memory. So my old one was a 32 gig. This was 512 gig. So I won't have the issue anymore where I was filming videos and halfway through one video I'd run out of storage. I'd upload it to my computer, delete it, and then finish recording. And it was just getting too much of a hassle. So yeah, new phone, new videos, basically. So yes, these are the DVDs and Blu-rays I've watched since the last update, whenever that was. Let's go through them. So first up is The Batman. So, as you may or may not know, I watch stuff in the order it comes in, and I've got a huge backlog, which you can see behind me. But occasionally stuff comes in that has to leap in front of a pile, and this is one of those. I never got round to seeing it in the cinema. Normally I do go and see Batman in the cinema, but I never got round to it with the Batman. But now the release window to Blu-ray is so short, it's not such a bad thing. Yeah, so Batman, my favourite superhero. Absolutely adore Batman films. And this was no exception. Absolutely loved it. Yeah. Probably my favourite Batman film since... certainly since The Dark Knight. But I even waver over that film, so it might be longer back than that. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Thought Robert Pattinson was excellent. Zoe Kravitz was excellent. Well, the whole cast. I mean, Colin Farrell, amazing performance, completely unrecognisable, both physically and acting-wise. Yeah, it's just so nice to watch a Batman film where Batman's actually detecting. You know, he is a detective, first and foremost. That's what the character's always been. Yeah, just absolutely loved it, basically, for Batman. This is a comedy Go Faster Stripe release that I picked up in their sale. I think it was £2 or £3. This is Seymour Mace's shit title, brilliant cover. This side is even better. Yeah. So I wasn't at all familiar with Seymour Mace, but picked this up, you know, because it was cheap. I thought, well, I might as well give it a go. He's a very interesting comedian. He won't be to everybody's taste, but I found him really funny. But yeah, he's got a very distinctive performance style. He's a Geordie, I think, or certainly from that area. You know, the northeast. And he's very sweary. But yeah, he's also very eccentric and does some strange stuff. And yeah, it's very hard to describe. As I say, won't be to everybody's taste. But I loved it. Bill and Ted, The Most Excellent Collection. So this was an HMV exclusive release of the three Bill and Ted films that came out when Face of Music came out on Blu-ray and DVD, I think, but certainly Blu-ray. So the first two films I've known and loved and owned for many, many years. I hadn't seen Face of Music until I watched this set. So of the original two, love Excellent Adventure. Obviously it's the film that started it all. Really enjoy it. Great film. Bogus Journey is actually my favourite, just for added budget and the expanded universe of it. I enjoy just that little bit more. But, we're talking, a 5-star film and a 4.999999 star film, Face for Music, I went in with some trepidation, because how can you match, films that have been made 30 years previously? Overall, I really enjoyed it. It isn't as good as the first two. But there's nothing really wrong with it. It just hasn't quite got that magic, basically. But yeah, it felt at times that Keanu in particular actually was almost doing an impression of himself rather than portraying Ted, as opposed to portraying Ted, if that makes sense. Almost as if he couldn't quite remember how to play him. Thought Alex was excellent though as Bill. He's still very much the same character. But that's sort of my only real gripe with it. I loved the daughters as well. They were great. But, it's still a really, really good film that I enjoyed a lot. And certainly brought a lump to the throat at times as well. A very different film. This is Possessor. So this is a film by Brandon Cronenberg, son of David Cronenberg. He's definitely got his father's genes. So, her name's gone out of my head. Let me find it. Andrea Riseborough is an assassin, but the way it works is that she gets implanted into somebody else's body. So she has control of them and their own mind and everything, but she is in this person's body. This person hasn't died, and it's somebody who's close to the target or who can get to the target, and this company is paid to kill people, and by doing so they infiltrate this person's life literally and then end up killing them. And then normally, once they've completed the mission, they kill themselves, and that sends them back into their own body, if that makes sense. I know it does make sense. I just don't know if it makes sense if you haven't seen the film. So having completed the mission, Andrea Riseborough in this black lady is the first person we see her in. Suicide, and she becomes Andrea Riseborough again. However, she started to sort of glitch while she's in these other bodies, and doesn't want to kill herself, and it's all gets a bit complicated. And she goes into this body of this bloke, played by Christopher Abbott, who wants to kill. It's trying to avoid spoilers, and it's very complicated. Basically, his mind. Yeah, so they're hired to kill this evil boss, basically, and the bloke she goes into is dating his daughter, played by Tuppence Middleton, which is my main reason for wanting to see this. But yeah, the minds are starting to meld and take over, and he's sort of fighting his way back in. Yeah, it's complicated, it's trippy, it's visually stunning. I really enjoyed it. I think it's another film that won't be to everybody's taste. But yeah, personally, I really loved it. Sorry, I know it was a bit garbled, but it's a complicated film and I didn't want to spoil it for people. This is Comfort of Strangers. So this is a Paul Schrader film, based on an Ian McEwan novel. So Natasha Richardson and Rupert Everett are a couple who their relationship is going through one of those periods where, you know, it's shall we call it a day or shall we try again periods. So to try and, you know, revitalise their relationship, they go back to Venice where they've been on holiday before. And whilst they're there, they meet Christopher Walken's character, Robert, who lives in Venice. He is Italian, although he's got a suspiciously American accent. With his wife, Helen Mirren, who's pretty much a recluse. And they get drawn into this friendship of sorts with them. And it all gets very manipulative and very strange. And again, I can't say too much without spoiling it. I enjoyed it. It's a bit long. What is it? 105 minutes. It probably could have been tightened up by about 10 minutes, but it's visually stunning. And it certainly draws you in. It's slightly reminiscent of... Don't Look Now, where it's set in Venice and there's lots of running around the back streets of Venice. The actual adaptation of the novel was by Howard Pinter as well, so that sort of explains some of the slowness. But yeah, I enjoyed it, and I do recommend you see it. But it could be a bit tighter. So this I was very kindly sent by Rory. We'd been discussing the show. In fact, I hadn't seen it, and he's sent me a sealed copy of the first two series of An Idiot Abroad. So this is a series starring Carl Pilkington, who was the producer of Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant's XFM show, and then featured on their podcast, which quickly became all about Carl, because Carl has a very unique worldview. So in the first series, they send him round to see these 7 wonders of the modern world. And then the second series, he gets sent around the world to do things on people's bucket lists. I enjoyed it very much. It's weird because in the past I've never doubted the authenticity of Carl's, I was going to say stupidity, but he's not stupid, but his unique worldview. However, in watching this, I found there were times when he seemed to be very clearly on top of everything and knew exactly what he was doing, as if some of it was an act. And strangely enough, it was those times when he was sort of winning, if you like, that I enjoyed the most and made me laugh the most. So it sort of made me doubt a bit now how much of his persona is an act. But I might be doing him a bit too much justice and he might just have moments of clarity, I don't know. But yeah, as I say, enjoyed them. Not sure which series I enjoyed most, actually. Possibly the second one, which might be a bit controversial. But yeah, thank you very much, Rory, as I've already mentioned to you. But yeah, really enjoyed those. This is Conversations with Other Women. So this is a film starring Helena Bonham Carter and Aaron Eckhart. Olivia Wilde gets a big credit on the cover, but she's in it for about 2 minutes. This is a Dutch release, I think, or German, I think. But that's the only way I could get it on Blu-ray. So, we're at a wedding. Helena Bonham Carter is one of the bridesmaids, but you can tell she doesn't really fit in. Aaron Eckhart is a guest there, and he's sort of watching her, and then he goes over and he starts chatting to her, and, you know, flirting with her, and there's clearly a mutual attraction. And then as time goes on, we learn that they're actually a former couple. They were married and they're divorced, and she's now living in the UK. It's set in France. she's now living in the UK with her new husband and his children. Aaron's back in America, where he's had a string of relationships with women far younger than him, basically. Currently dating a 22-year-old dancer. And they're 45 in this. Pretty much the entire thing is the two of them just chatting. There are flashbacks to younger versions of themselves. The younger Helena Bonham Carter character is played by Nora Zetner, who was in Heroes. So Olivia Wilde is one of the other bridesmaids, and they have a little interaction in the lift. But yeah, it's sort of the tale of their night and what they get up to, if you know what I mean. And how they clearly have a lot of affection for each other still, but there are very obvious reasons their relationship didn't work. And yeah, it's just a really nice pretty much two-hander, really nicely done. It was originally planned to be filmed entirely as a split screen effect, so one camera focusing on Aaron, one on Helena Bonham Carter, and at times they would sort of join because they're together, but other times they would split off. And it does that at the start, and then it sort of loses that, and it comes up with some other... They've obviously shot most of the scenes multiple times in multiple different ways, and they sort of overlap at times, the character saying the same line in about 4 or 5 different ways, and that sort of takes you out of it a little bit. At times it's too obvious a cinematic technique. The split screen thing didn't, but the repetition of lines and what have you made it really, obvious you're watching a scripted piece rather than getting involved with the characters so much. But yeah, other than that, yeah, very much enjoyed. This is It Couldn't Happen Here, which is the Pet Shop Boys film, directed by Jack Bond. Something I'd never seen before. I like the Pet Shop Boys. I'm not a huge fan. I'm a Greatest Hits fan, basically. But I've always been curious about this film. It's very strange. It doesn't really know what it wants to be. It's not quite a series of videos stitched together, but the narrative doesn't really work either. Yeah, it's very strange. So apart from the Pet Shop Boys, who are fine in it, Chris Lowe doesn't do a great deal of acting, much as their stage performance. He just tends to stand there, but he does some, and Neil Tennant obviously does more. We've got Joss Ackland, who plays a blind priest who may actually be a serial killer. Gareth Hunt plays a number of roles. Barbara Windsor pops up in it, as does Carmen de Soto. Yeah, it's a bit peculiar, but overall I quite enjoyed it. But I wouldn't say... I mean, if you're a Pet Shop Boys fan, you need to watch it. If you're not, if you like strangeness, then it's worth giving a go, but I wouldn't go out of my way to watch it. This is The Goes Wrong Show, Series 1. So in my last update, I showed Peter Pan Goes Wrong and Christmas Carol Goes Wrong. So this is the first series of the TV show. So they're 6 half-hour playlets, if you like, 6 half-hour dramas that are put on by the Cornley Dramatic Society. And as always, they go wrong. This first series was excellent. Second series, which I've got and we'll get round to eventually, I found they're starting to get a bit repetitive and lacking a few ideas. Maybe it'll improve on a second watch, but this first series was excellent. So you've got a Christmas episode, you've got a legal thriller, which is brilliant. The sets on that are amazing. A wartime drama, a horror story, a period romance, a deep South melodrama, which is all, they've had problems and some of the sets have been built at the wrong angles, and that's really good. Yeah, just really good stuff. Very, very funny. Only downside, so on YouTube there are a number of videos of the cast watching and commenting on each of these episodes. They also did it for Peter Pan Goes Wrong and Christmas Carol Goes Wrong. Those are on the relevant DVDs. This has got a special feature, which is interviews with the cast, but it hasn't got those watch-along commentary type things, which is a shame, because I really enjoyed those. This was a charity shop purchase, so this is series 1 of the Catherine Tate show. It's been on my Amazon wish list for years, and I never got round to it, so when I saw it in a charity shop for £1 or whatever, yeah, £1, I picked it up. The reason I hadn't snapped it up years before is that I find it a bit hit and miss. She's very talented. I love Nan. Lauren, I think, gets better in the second series from memory, which I do have. I have picked up. Again, it's in my pile. But there's big sections of this where it's either a one-joke character who's in every episode when, you know, a one-off would have been better, or they're just not particularly funny to me. But, you know, when it's good, it's really good. It also has the 2005 comic relief appearance where McFly are in the studio because they did the comic relief song that year with It's All About You, being interviewed by Simon Amstell, and Lauren is one of the school children in the audience who's asking them questions. There's a behind the scenes bit as well on there. But yeah, not amazing stuff, but some really good stuff. This is the Knack and How to Get It, which is a 1965 film directed by Dick Lester, based on the play of the same name. So Dick Lester did Hard Day's Night and Help, and some stuff with the Goons, and How I Won the War, and then went on to do The Three Musketeers, The Four Musketeers, Superman 2, amongst others. So basically, Michael Crawford owns a property and he rents a room to Ray Brooks' character, and Ray Brooks' character is a real ladies' man. Michael Crawford hasn't got the knack to go with a title. And he's sort of trying to get tips and what have you, but at the same time sort of hating him for his success, and he decides he's going to rent out the other room to a more respectable person. And then it's all very complicated, but they end up meeting Rita Tushingham, who's an innocent country girl who's just moved to London, and is again, it's just, you know, how to explain it without spoiling it too much. Yeah, it's basically just the story of their meeting and various attempts by various cast members to seduce her, and how it ends up. There's some excellent slapstick in this. There's a huge, great sequence where Michael Crawford buys a bed from a scrapyard, and then they have to transport it across London back to the house, which is a brilliant sequence, really well done. It's a bit slow in parts, it's a bit dated in parts, but I enjoyed it a fair bit. This is Permissive, so this is a BFI Flipside release, a 1970 film. Susie travels to London to meet up with a friend. Turns out this friend has become a groupie for this rock band. So Susie gets into the scene and becomes a groupie as well. And it's basically just her story and the story of groupies in the late 60s, early 70s. Very interesting. It's not a bright, cheerful film. Yeah, I don't want to spoil it, but not every character has a happy ending. Some decent music in this. Comus Forevermore and Titus Groan play on it, who aren't bands I'm familiar with, but are proper bands, if you like. This also contains the 68-minute film Bread, directed by Stanley Long, who went on to make the Adventures films and a lot of his 70s sex comedies, which is a more light-hearted film about a group of kids who put on a festival which turns into a free festival, which is very enjoyable as well. Certainly more enjoyable than Permissive, because, as I say, Permissive is quite a dark film. But yeah, both were films I enjoyed watching, if you like. Again, probably won't be to everybody's taste, but if you like that sort of thing, well worth checking out. When the Wind Blows, another BFI release. So I remembered watching this when it came out. It aired on Channel 4 originally. So this is written by Raymond Briggs, who I was a big fan of when I was a kid because I loved Fungus the Pokemon. It's basically, at the time this came out, which was 1986, there was much paranoia about nuclear bombs. And in this story, the Russians attack us with a nuclear missile. And it's about these two characters, Jim and Hilda Bloggs, voiced by Sir John Mills and Dame Peggy Ashcroft. And it's their preparations as it looks increasingly likely that there will be an attack, and then the aftermath of the attack, basically. It's a beautiful looking film, beautifully acted, sort of voice acting, and wonderfully animated. It's not a happy film. But yeah, really good. Soundtrack, theme song is done by David Bowie, and the rest of the soundtrack is done by Roger Waters, so the music is excellent. But yeah, it's When the Wind Blows. This is The Children's Hour. So this is a 1961 film starring Audrey Hepburn, Shirley MacLaine and James Garner. My reason for picking this up, it's another BFI release, is that I saw the play of this 11 years ago, I think it was now, which is quite scary, in London's glittering West End. Keira Knightley and Elizabeth Moss played the Audrey Hepburn and Shirley MacLaine characters. So those two young ladies have set up a school in a American Midwest type town. They run the school, and Shirley MacLaine's character's aunt also lives there and teaches, who's a former actress who sort of one of these typical grand dames of theatre who hasn't really worked for about 40 years type characters. Audrey Hepburn's character is engaged to James Garner, who's a local doctor. And at the start of this, they set a date for their wedding at long last, having been engaged for over 2 years, I think it is. There's a child in this school who's a troublemaker, always bunking off, always lying. And she starts a rumour. She basically doesn't want to be there. So she tells her grandmother that she has seen that they are having a lesbian affair. So the grandmother tells all the parents, and all the children get pulled out of school. And of course in 1961 it was still illegal, so they get sued. And it's about, that and the aftermath of it, basically. But it's, you know, it's based on the play. The play came first. And it is very much a character piece. It's a lot of talking. You know, sort of long scenes. It did drag a bit at the start. Obviously, I knew where it was heading, having seen the play. But I did find, I mean, it's an hour and 48 minutes. And sort of the first half hour, I sort of looked and thought, bloody hell, there's still over an hour to go. But then sort of next time I looked, we were about 10 minutes from the end. And I thought, oh, that's gone quickly. So it definitely picks up as you get more into the storyline. Excellent performances. Really very good. And then finally, this baby, the Beatles Get Back. So I never saw this on Disney Plus. I don't have Disney Plus. I've got Netflix, I've got Amazon Prime. I rarely use either, much as there's quite a bit on Disney Plus I want to watch. There's also a lot on Disney Plus that I own. So I've not bought Disney Plus. So I was thrilled when they confirmed that this was getting a physical release. The day it arrived, I sat and watched the first 2 episodes, and then the next day I watched the 3rd episode. It's a really nice package. There's hundreds of unboxing for this, which is why I didn't bother doing one. But yeah, really nice package. I absolutely loved it, basically. Yeah, I could have watched another 8 hours of it, you know, that wasn't right around. It's just fascinating watching these 4 hugely talented men doing what they were doing and the ups and downs of it. I would have, you know, quite liked it. It finishes at the rooftop concert, but that wasn't quite the end of these sessions. So it would have been nice. They briefly show some more recordings, but it would have been nice for it to have gone on a little bit longer at the end. But you can understand narratively why they did what they did. But yeah, just absolutely loved it. Really enjoyed it. Not sure which part was my favourite. You know, part 1, you've got all the tensions and it ends with George walking out on the band. Part 2 is a lot happier. A lot more creative, probably. And then part 3, obviously, you've got the joy of a concert. But I think I prefer part 1. Not so much because of the tensions, but it's got moments like the section where Paul basically composes Get Back off the top of his head in 10 minutes. You know, you can just sit. We're just watching him noodling away on the bass and suddenly getting a riff and starting to eke out some lyrics. And by the end of that little section, you know this is going to become Get Back, and he's pretty much got the general gist of a song sorted already. You know, it's watching the genius at work. It's that I really enjoyed. So that's it. That's the DVDs and Blu-rays I've watched up until July 23rd since the last update. Thank you for watching. Like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in another video. Thanks.